humans are supposed to be stewards of this planet, not use the planet just simply for entertainment. So
a lot of people think we should have dominion over animals, but instead we should have stewardship and look after them.
Exactly.
Because they're innocent, they can't defend themselves.
We should work side by side.
Well, so let's go back to this question.
Okay.
Is animal abuse justified if it gives us pleasure? What do you think about that question?
Out of curiosity, what do you mean by if it gives us pleasure?
Well, it's up to interpretation. So it could be entertainment.
Abuse is abuse, which is against someone's their morals. That was the word. Yeah.
Or like their autonomy, maybe.
Now that question in particular is morally just shite. As in, well,
it's a loaded question.
What I mean by morally shite is the fact that question even needs to be asked. Which is where some people go. Which is why when I say the fact that it even needs to be asked is that's kind of a bit surreal, because obviously animal abuse isn't justified, so human abuse isn't justified, no abuse is justified. So
I absolutely agree.
Why does that question have to exist?
Would you agree though in many cases it's normalised?
No, you don't. You see,
not locally,
you hear human abuse, but not animal abuse.
Not locally, but there are certain poachers, I believe it is.
Trophy hunting.
Trophy hunting, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, would you agree, like, say, entertainment, like bullfighting, like maybe like abuse in the circus, that's very common in lots of cultures.
Bullfighting can be done harmlessly, can't it?
They almost always kill the bull at the end, and, there's lots of forms of exploitation.
For me, the use of animals in terms of entertainment, like, for example, you have dog shows, and they're done in a very nice way. There's just... you get the
but then you could say there's dog breeding involved with that as well.
For me, the things that are done naturally, the issue I find is the second humans became this apex predator that stood above. Actually, we're not even longer really in the food chain.
Yeah.
We abuse our power, and we'll do anything for the sort of, like you said, for pleasure.
We have in the past.
Yeah?
We have in the past.
We have in the past, and unfortunately, there's still remnants of that.
Right.
So,
and like I said,
I was just saying, in terms of animal abuse, should definitely not be done, because a lot of animals are have the intelligence of us humans, and if not some, even I would argue even further, they might just not have the tools to do it. So definitely, I don't think it's fair to abuse any living creature, because it always goes back to humans are supposed to be stewards of this planet, not use the planet just simply for entertainment. So
a lot of people think we should have dominion over animals, but instead we should have stewardship and look after them.
Exactly.
Because they're innocent, they can't defend themselves.
We should work side by side, and I think in some areas I feel like, so actually I read one of your signs at the back to do with veganism.
Yeah, so that's where it links. So when I'm saying pleasure, people might think of like dog fighting, bull fighting, things like that. But also the taste pleasure we get. Is it justified to get sensory pleasure from an animal when we don't need to consume animal products? So
at that point, I would then argue so my biggest issue with the way the world works at the moment is the mass production of everything. I've seen videos of how small chicks are basically thrown through a blender to make...
All male chicks on birth are macerated.
Exactly. Yeah. I completely disagree with that. But so I was born actually in a farm where we grew we took care of all our cattle, all our animals. We worked with them to work the land. We worked with them to give them a better state of life. And then it came to the time where we would then kill them and eat them. But it was way more, what's the word? Sustain, and I think there needs to be a balance, because so my partner's actually vegan. We mainly consume a vegan lifestyle, but it's a lot more expensive. So depending on
I'm encouraging people to eat like a whole foods plant-based. It's actually been shown to be cheaper if you're eating more like raw ingredients.
Does you mean mainly vegetables?
Say grains, legumes, fruit, veg, things like that. So less processed foods, which are more expensive.
Yeah, definitely true. But I found that for myself, my body can't process those things that well. So I will need to start taking things like supplements, which have a bunch of other potentially bad things inside them that could harm them. So I've tried to strike a balance in it where most of what I consume is vegetable based. Most is I like beans and everything. But I try to, from time to time, I try to get the most organic and the most eco-friendly, in a way, like a small piece of chicken that I eat maybe once a month to kind of try and balance that out.
Well, I say you say organic, but even organic chicken, those male chicks are macerated at birth, even if it was organic farms.
But the good thing is there's change coming. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, in Germany, it's now illegal to do that, whether it's a male chick or not.
They don't like call-free eggs.
And they need to go somewhere where, so there's actually now farms specifically for roosters, where all the roosters that the farms don't want, they'll go there and they'll still live actually a very happy and very, well, I say happy, a better quality of life than other places can provide.
What about slaughterhouse practices? Even those chickens who have better welfare, they still end up in a slaughterhouse. In the UK, the legal so-called humane way of killing a chicken is gassing them. They get gassed. It takes about a minute to kill them. They get like carbon dioxide gets pumped in, so they suffocate to death.
Okay,
that's the legal.
That would drastically reduce the quality of the food as well, wouldn't it?
Well, but the quality of the life of the animal, they've experienced mass suffering.
Too. So I'm trying to, because it's at that point, it's not even an amoral thing. It's just a stupid thing. Again, rich idiots.
But again, it's about profit for them. It's not about the quality of meat or the life of the animal.
Rich idiots. It's
money.
It's the same as why the hell everyone is still investing so heavily into oil-based power generation, as when the nuclear fission option is readily available and is so it's leagues ahead in terms of power generation and eco-friendliness.
So it's nuclear fusion.
Fission.
Fission. Yes, but then you have the byproduct of that. But then that's gone into a different.
We're just going into it. So it's getting short-sightedness and ignorance.
There were long. As pretty much as I said earlier, if you play the longer game with these things, you can figure out far better solutions. So, for example, replace these meat factories with gigantic greenhouses growing something like jackfruit, or harvesting sunflower seeds.
That's just because you ate it at my place.
I did. That's the first talking about.
Sorry, I actually, I'm a firm believer in I do believe there needs to be a balance, because if we remove the fact that humans were so advanced, even animals who are, sorry, what are we? I forgot the term, where we can eat meat and plants.
Omnivores, but we're selective omnivores.
Yeah.
We don't have to consume meat.
We don't have to consume, exactly, but still, there is still that, there needs to be, I do firmly believe there needs to be a balance, because in terms of the nutrition you get, but I actually, most of the foods I make for my friends and I is actually completely naturally vegan. We use jackfruit a lot as an alternative, we use soybeans, all this sort of things, but I still do believe there needs to be.
Well, you say balance, but you can get a balance and meet your nutritional requirements on a plant-based diet. Like, you don't need to consume meat to find that balance.
Though you say that, though, when I I switched mainly to being vegan for a long time. And actually, my body was not able to handle it well. So when I went to the doctors,
Were you tracking your nutrition?
So I was tracking my nutrition and trying to see what was going on, and it just said my body's not this. Like, it was not able to absorb as much from what I was consuming as meat. So my doctor actually said they recommended themselves, hey, not on a constant daily basis, but like from time to time, it will be good to consume that. This will help your body process that a lot better. Well, again, that's just what I was.
Everyone's bodies are different, but there's a website I'm recommending people go to called Challenge 22.
What's it called?
Challenge 22.
Challenge 22.
It's completely free, and they have nutritionists on there. Mm-hmm. But it has been proven by the British and American Dietetic Association that we don't need to consume any animal products to live. Dietetic.
Where can you get sources of protein that aren't from legumes? Because I can't have legumes.
So like beans, soy.
Kidney beans, they make me like seriously ill.
Okay, like soy protein, pea protein. There's loads of different alternatives. Again, look at this website. They've got nutritionists and meal prep, and it's mostly whole foods, plant-based, so cheaper.
Really cool.
They also need to. There's also certain kinds of proteins as well. Certain sub-varieties that are either beneficial or detrimental to us.
But an important distinction to be made is, like, people think you have to consume animal protein. There's no difference between animal protein and plant protein. Animals get their protein from plants.
Yeah.
Protein's protein.
Aren't there multiple different kinds of protein? Many subkinds.
There are definitely many subkinds, but I think that one of the biggest things is it's easier to break down for us. It's easier to break down the proteins based in animals because it's kind of already partially broken down. By the way, correct me if I'm wrong. This is from what I remember. It's more partially already broken down for us, and it's easier for us to get than from plants. It's in a way, original state of sorts. That's my knowledge.
I'm no nutritionist.
Yeah, no, me neither. But like,
So if you think about, I know one of my friends was a vegetarian all their life, and she couldn't eat meat now because it wouldn't agree with her. Like, your body adapts So I feel like if you stop things at a certain point, there's no going back. Your body doesn't know how to do something anymore.
Well, if you cut out dairy, you become dairy intolerant a lot of the time.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
like,
Like a lot of
she's
people
always
get
been
that.
vegetarian because her whole family is, and that's how she was brought up. And she can't have. She said even if I did want to eat meat now, not that she does, my body wouldn't be able to process it at this point
Yeah.
because it's lost how to do it.
Could I ask you a question though, out of curiosity? What are your like? Let's say you had the power right now to basically make everybody vegan. Let's say.
Okay.
One, would you do it? And two, how would you do it? Because I know there are, unfortunately, I personally fail to. I can't see eating only meat to be correct. I can't see being in a full vegan diet also correct, because in terms of how do you get all the different products, all the vegetables, all the different plants that we require? Because from other resources that I've seen, to grow these corpses, it becomes like sometimes a bit of a monoculture where a lot of field, like we were talking earlier, a lot of field can sometimes be taken down, trees cut down for meat, but it can also be cut down for farms, which then have pesticides, which kill a lot of the life around it that seeps into rivers and stuff.
Basically decimating any ecosystem.
Am I like all powerful in this situation?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just curious.
Assume you're a deity.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
well-
not to like put you in a tricky position. I'm just really curious.
Well, for the animals which are being exploited and for animal rights, I absolutely would. If I could make everyone vegan and understand why that was the case, I would do that. More realistically, I wouldn't enforce that or make it the law, because I think it's an ethical position which people need to come to, and enforcing something isn't a good way of making that a norm. But in this situation, I'd kind of explain to everyone, I'd kind of talk to them telepathically and explain why it's best for the animals, and maybe show them footage or let them know what happens. I'd also change farming practices, because I agree, monocultures is an extremely destructive way of farming.
Supermarkets at this point, like
Say again?
even I think it's more down to like the supermarkets or who.
Well, it's supply and demand as well.
That makes sense, but like the supermarkets have made it an environment where the problem is in terms of keeping animals, if they've not got a purpose, whether it's to like farm wool, so the sheep's alive, but obviously it needs to be short because it's too hot every now and then anyway, and things like that. A lot of the time you're no longer, because old crafts and things like that have been lost, and like in consumer society, people aren't using things that you could keep the animal alive for, but they'd still make money in order to keep feeding them. As in, like, it isn't profitable to keep a sheep only to shear its wool once a year to give it, obviously so it's not too hot, and sell the wool. That doesn't make enough money to keep the sheep like fed and safe and thing, and therefore with all the farmers like riots that are happening like in France and things like that, it's a lot of the time is the government keeps cutting costs down. The economy's moved away from growing and making things to like, I don't know really what it's moved to. I don't know how you define what it's moved to now, but because it's valued less.
Yeah, mass production, exploitation of land.
That's why I feel like it's cutting corners and things like that in terms of resulting in these negative things. Because objectively, you can say to anyone like, yes, we know this is definitely bad, and we know this is definitely good, and there's a grey area of it sort of depends on circumstances, and everyone can clearly draw those lines, but it's not always achievable to get to that thing. Like, yes, everyone have an electric car, that solve tailpipe emissions, but you're then getting emissions from making the vehicle. You're mining up a lot more serious things, and an electric car has to go 80,000 miles before it produces anything. But banning cars completely isn't a viable solution either. So it's like catch-22 of trying to find the best solution moving forwards in the economy we've got, because the best thing to do really would be to completely get rid of all the politics. I mean, they're all wankers. But restart all of that and start again would be easier at this point.
So I think something links to you were saying sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah,
I think a lot of it is we're trying to
dived into an age-old industry that they refuse to pull away from because it's made them money for this long. So why the hell will they change it?
So like we need to invest more into more like sustainable alternatives, like vertical farming, permaculture, these different things which could provide like nutritionally adequate and like the food we need en masse without the exploitation of the environment, and start to rebuild natural processes. And yeah, like I say, like we shouldn't be kind of digging down further into what we're doing. We need to look for alternatives. Otherwise, we're going to go further into this path of destruction and exploitation and our own extinction. Because that's where it's going.
Fire, and it's which fire do you deal with first?
Yeah,
Currently.
I do.
But like, don't add more fire to it. We need to try and
You know what I mean?
need some put it
I
out.
feel like today's society, just generally, for like our generation, I said to you two earlier, I feel like the 1980s, our parents' group was probably better because you had stuff that was built to last, so you didn't have the consumerism society. You had a fridge freezer and it lasted you 40 years. It didn't break down, you didn't have that waste of material, you weren't digging up the ground to make more material, it lasted you and it lived forever. You could still afford to go places, you didn't have to have all these fancy degrees and qualifications that put stress on people's mental health. The cost of living crisis, you could afford, as long as you had a job reasonably and you went to work, you could afford to buy a house, you could afford to put food on the table.
Have time to cook those meals.
Yeah, things like that. But now we've lost that. We're in a sort of, as I said, everything's on fire, and it's what fire do we put out first, and how do we put this fire out? Because like everything's on fire. If you've got the balance of if you try and push towards everyone going to, at the moment, if everyone went vegan today, you wouldn't have enough plants currently in production to feed everyone.
It'd be a transition.
Yeah,
I'm not saying everyone, that wouldn't work, everyone.
But it's like one of those things, and it's like figuring out how to balance each of those things, of putting the money towards having that, but then offsetting the cost so you can do that without increasing the cost of living crisis. And, I mean, it's a bit like, it's a difference of points. I don't know how to get to where we want to get without something else going further down to try and bring something up. It's
Though
like
at the same time, I feel like that's a very
negative view.
not so much a negative view, but it's very much I feel like a human thing to do. That it's like, oh, we have so many issues, let's just ignore all of them and just keep going.
I'm not saying ignore them.
No,
I'm
but
just saying I don't know which one to deal with first.
True, that is true. But change needs to come, and change needs to be, because if you just not to bring it, but like with this university, sometimes we find ourselves in our courses, which is, this is not to bring start a conversation on how this university runs, but it's like sometimes there's a lot of things that can potentially go wrong, but at the end of the day, you have a target. You need to, for example, get the assignment done. You need to get your degree or whatnot. So sometimes it's like, yes, these things are going on, but let's fix them and actually start creating that change and start creating the change that we want to see. Otherwise, it's very easy to just go, there's so much going on, and panic. And it's like the analogy I always go is when you go to a buffet table and let's say you need to finish everything, it's easy to get overwhelmed.
It's a paralysis.
But you just need to get that plate, start putting things on it, and start going for it.
Yeah, saying to you, like, we need to make not just like long-term strategies, but also short-term goals to meet those and like move towards that. But like individually, because we can't do that thing where like we can say, oh, I'm going to make everyone believe this and change the systems. We only have our individual powers. So I'm asking people, like, individually, the best thing we can do for animal rights, for the environment, and for our health is going plant-based. It cuts out direct animal exploitation. Of course, there's still some suffering, but there's always going to be some suffering. But going plant-based and whole foods is the best way to minimize that. It reduces our carbon footprint by 75%, and it's better for our health and for many conditions.
There's also there's also the issue of variety. No one knows where to start with these things with vegan foods, because I've noticed. The Beyond Burgers are one example. They are horrendously processed.
That's what I'm saying, whole foods. We need to move away from processed food because it's terrible.
People don't know that, for example, you can turn sunflower seeds into a beef substitute, which is what my grandmother did, and they couldn't tell the difference.
Actually, if I could jump into that, I was going to I think one of the biggest things that needs to happen is education. People need to be taught, because when I first came to university, I was like, hated vegetables, hated their taste. No, I'm going to eat meat, only keep eating meat.
No one has any idea how to actually
Basically, I'm not going to listen to anybody else who says otherwise. I met my partner, and she would always make these delicious foods, and they smelled so good, and I'm like, oh, can I give it a try?
It's about creativity, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I very quickly started learning more and more about it. So where I would be a person who would eat meat basically for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, the actual time that I eat meat nowadays is maybe once a month, if that. And even then, I would much rather make my own burger of the soybeans I have at home or of the jackfruit I have at home. Add all these seasonings and make it better. So going back to the whole thing of whole food, I prefer going that even to the beyond the meat alternatives. But it's education I feel like people need to learn to actually, because when people hear vegan, it's this massive change. Surprisingly not. So for example,
people think it's restricting, but it's not. Like there's meat is only like a few animals which people consume. There's so many fruits and veg and grains and legumes people can choose from. So it's not actually limiting, it's actually broadening what we can eat.
There's also the problem that the word vegan has become slightly radioactive in certain spaces too, because there are certain I'm going to say bad actors who will. Take Just Stop Oil for example. Their method of raising awareness, it raised awareness, but more to the fact that they're all complete dickheads that don't know how else to actually solve the problems. Meanwhile, there's also people.
You say about education. A lot of it is about making people aware of the issue.
Exactly, and then there's also certain vegan organisations that will show up at a restaurant, douse the front windows in blood, and fucking play audio files of cows getting slaughtered or something just to try and guilt trip people. That's not how to approach this thing at all. It is, again, you need to start off with an education. Nothing else. That's where you basically plant the seed, so to speak.
Yeah, that's why I'm doing this kind of thing, like educating people. People don't really think about animal rights at all. And like, can I go back to your point about like even if you're eating meat one time a month, ultimately for the animal which is being consumed, they're still having their rights exploited or like infringed upon, and they're being exploited. And again, like look into that link Challenge 22.
Yeah, no, I will.
Learn that you don't need. Like it might take. You might have to, eat certain foods, more of them, but you don't need to consume any animal products.
Here's a question for you though.
In terms of, I feel like rather than saying like you've got to go cold turkey, cold turkey doesn't work with like smokes and things like that.
Right, so we do need to head off after this one.
Small changes, so like starting by reducing weight or. As a student, because meat is expensive, I tend to put like half the amount of meat it says to put in, and like twice the amount of vegetables.
So
you end up. It's not a full transition.
Unfortunately, we have a lecture to get to.
Yeah, no worries, guys. I appreciate the conversation. I really enjoyed
literally, if it was up to us, we would talk to you for hours. And not so much like going again, because him and I, we always go.
We have two completely different opinions on fucking everything.
Yeah,
but at the same time, we're both great friends.
What we say is, it's a matter of an argument doesn't, or a conversation doesn't always need to be, I'm trying to convince you and you need to change by the end of it.
Shouting or anything like that.
You have your opinion, we have ours, so let's educate each other on what we know.
Absolutely,
and hopefully we can get to an understanding where either I see more towards your point or you see more towards us. So if it was up to us, we would love to talk to you because we really want to hear from you. So
you can't go into a conversation with like a debate attitude, can you? You have to be like, this is my perspective, let's find out yours and let's find the middle ground.
And look, I know you're holding hands, but thank you so very much.
Nice talking to you. You're a handshaker.
Thank you so very much.
Yeah, maybe bump into you another time.
And thank you for the website. I will actually look into it.
Yeah, Challenge 22. Like I say, I'm not trying to sell you something. It's entirely free.
No, not at all. If I can make that change
on YouTube,
I generally do want. Yeah, actually, me too.
Yeah.
Actually, you just send it to me later. Yeah, we got a lecture to go. We got 2 minutes. So,
go.
Have a good one.
Nice talking to you. Thanks for watching. Please hit the like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you get notified when videos go up every Thursday. If you want to watch another conversation, here are a couple of options. And if you want to support my activism, there's a link in my profile to a page where you can buy me a coffee and donate money to an animal sanctuary. Thanks, Amber.